Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to Moving the Chains with Ashmere on Nuts and Bolts Sports. I can't believe it's already October. We've got a lot of football coming up. Basketball preseason starts on Thursday. We've got the wild card for baseball. I mean, like, the sports world is just popping off this month. So let's just kind of go over a couple games. I've only got a couple, literally 2 college games, simply because all the other ones were blowouts, or I didn't really pay attention, to be quite honest, because I was so overwhelmed by this Clemson USC game. I don't know if anybody caught that, but it was awesome. I mean, Clemson's #1 in the nation. Their quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, is insanely talented. I mean, he could throw the ball down the field, and he rushed actually majority of this game because the UNC defense was on him. I mean, I tweeted it. The UNC defense was insane. Their D-line was closing in on him super quick, which definitely forced him to have those 45 rushing yards. It was just a really close game. UNC lost by 1 point simply because their coach, Mac Brown, said in the post-game interview that he wanted to win, and he wasn't sure if the team was going to be able to carry on for another overtime, or there was 2 minutes left on the clock, but he didn't know how they were going to handle it because a lot of their players were limping on the sidelines. He could tell that they were pretty beat up. I mean, they did perform 110%. It was so obvious. Every time UNC was the first to score, and after that Clemson came back and scored, and then UNC scored. Clemson scored twice. I feel like there was just a battle that was really strong in North Carolina, and so it was a great game. But the Clemson Tigers are still on a 20-game win streak, the highest in their school history. So it'll be fun to watch them as the year progresses. I'm glad when anybody who is not Ohio State is #1, or Alabama. Sorry guys, but I'm just a Duck fan. And the second game I'm going to talk about is the Cal versus ASU game. Cal was the only Pac-12 team that was undefeated until Saturday. ASU actually beat them 24-17, and I mean, that game was kind of spotty, to be fairly honest. I don't know, maybe I've never really watched a lot of Cal games or ASU games, but probably people talk about this when they watch the Oregon offensive defense perform as well. I just feel like there was a lot of mistakes on both ends of the team. Even though ASU came up with a win, it was just their defense was a little scattered, and it was hard for Cal to rush the ball at all. And their quarterback, Chase Garbers, was actually injured in the first quarter, and so he came back with a sling on his arm, and that's never really a good sign for your quarterback. So his backup, Devin Modster, came in, and he threw an interception, which I feel like is inevitable for somebody that's just coming in off the spot. And so now Modster will be playing against Oregon next week in Oregon. And the true freshman for ASU, Jaden Daniels, he was on fire. I mean, not only was he passing well, he had 174 completed yards, and he had 84 rushing yards. I feel like that just showed how versatile of a quarterback he is, and so young and so early on. He's really able to get a full view of the field. I mean, you can see when he's like there was a Pac-12 video that came out, and he's literally just always scanning, falling on his back foot, and just like putting a lot of power into his throws. And I feel like that's a great projection for a freshman quarterback. For Cal, in 4 possessions, Cal had scored only 1 touchdown, and their other 3 drives, they had drop passes. So I just feel like offensive and defensively, they had performed a little bit shaky. And I'm not gonna say that it's gonna be hard against Oregon. I feel like it's pretty well known that it's gonna be a hard game against Oregon in Autzen Stadium with Justin Herbert coming off a bye week. It's just like, I feel like now that the Bears have been beat, the Oregon Ducks feel at ease, and they will come through and win in the end. I can't really say that I want them to lose, because obviously I don't. So for NFL, I feel like week 4 was insanity, right? I mean, every game was so good. I guess you could call it fortunate, but I have this thing called NFL Ticket where I could watch all 8 games at one time, and at the 10 a.m. games, like, everything was insane. I feel like I had no idea which game to keep my eye on the most, because I was going to miss something in the end, like Marcus Mariota beating Matt Ryan, and, you know, throwing those 2 touchdowns to his rookie wide receiver, A.J. Brown, for those 30 fantasy points that we all wish we had last week. It was a great set of games. The main 3 I'm going to discuss are obviously the 95-point game for LA. That was just, Jameis Winston performed a lot better than he did against the Giants last week. I mean, he had a lead of 18 points, and then the Giants came back and beat him and in the end, and they lost. And so I feel like this was his redemption round, especially coming off from a Super Bowl team. It's just important for him to, I feel like, prove to himself. A lot of people were talking about how Jameis is not, like, he shouldn't have that title of being the #1 drafted. So, you know, he proved his mark this week for sure. He had 4 touchdowns, 2 of them to Chris Godwin, his, you know, wide receiver 2, because Mike Evans was heavily guarded. And last week, Evans was open, 45 fantasy points. TBT to that, because I wish I had that again this week, even though I won. But yeah, it was a great game. Goff threw 3 picks, and that's just very unlike him. I mean, the Bucs defense stepped up. The passing game was really great from him, like I mentioned. Everything, they played a lot more cohesively for Tampa Bay. I feel like they've been pretty scattered the past 3 weeks. They haven't made a lot of great play calling, and so it was a good game. And another game is the Raiders in Indianapolis. I feel like I never know what's going to happen with the Raiders, especially because Derek Carr is very unpredictable. You know, the play calling is very unpredictable. The defense is super unpredictable. And it was just them going into Indianapolis. And I was listening to Colin Cowherd, and he mentioned that he was picking the Raiders in -7. And so I was like, I can't imagine them winning by more than a field goal, because I feel like that's such Raider fashion, is to go field goal after field goal after field goal, and they have like 12 points and then they lose. But for Derek Carr to have 21 points in the first half, in the first quarter, like, that was just crazy to me. So great performance by Derek. I mean, they had a touchdown on 3 of their 4 first possession drives, and they've converted their first downs and their third downs. They were playing as like the Raiders should, and so it was a great game to watch. And lastly, we'll talk about the Chiefs in Detroit. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is one of the best quarterbacks, as we know, but Matthew Stafford and the Detroit Lions put up a great game. They only lost 34-30, simply because Darrell Williams was on the 1-yard line, and of course he's going to run it in and score. But, I mean, I really didn't know what to expect. I know Detroit was, you know, undefeated before this game, but also I just feel like when people play Patrick Mahomes, it's like a flip or a flop. The Raiders had him as a scoreless first quarter, and then boom, second quarter he had his best passing game. You know, it just feel like it's very unpredictable with the Chiefs, but it was down to the wire with Detroit, and they played so well. Matthew Stafford had 291 yards, and he had 3 touchdowns. Kerryon Johnson had 125 yards, except he had a fumble, and that wasn't cool because he was literally on the end zone for Detroit. And since the ball had bounced off of the helmet of somebody else, it was ran back for a 100-yard touchdown, and that was crazy. I mean, literally, Bashaud Breeland was lucky for that one, and I'll show you the replay right here just so you can see what's going on. But it was just unfortunate. You know, when you're watching the play over, you're looking at it, and you feel like the whistle should be blown, but the ball never dropped anywhere. It was like the refs had very good eyes for catching what they did. But so let's go over some fantasy. It's week 5. The waiver wire is hot. I am going against my friend that's got, you know how like on Yahoo Sports it tells you your match percentage, and we're literally at 50%. And I have 2 flex positions that I don't know what to do because for some reason I drafted high on my receivers and not on my running backs, and Kerryon Johnson has a bye week this week, so I'm kind of confused. Like, is it silly to put 4 receivers and only 2 running backs on my roster? And Austin Eckler is playing with Melvin Gordon, and it's like I'm in this weird limbo of like, what do I do? So if you guys have any tips, I'm open to all of them. I will definitely need your help. But I feel like there's some people to pick up if you don't know what to do. And NVS, Valdez-Scantling from the Packers, since Devontae Adams is injured right now and he's definitely not playing against the Cowboys, he's somebody you should pick up. I have him. I don't know if that's going to help me at all, but like I mentioned, I have so many receivers, it's kind of hard to figure out like who I'm going to play. I've got Evans, I've got Brandon Cooks, I've got who is the other? There's just too many. I've got Christian Kirk on my bench. It's just like there's a lot of people. So I've got a lot of thinking to do, and then for the running backs, Jordan Howard did a great job this week. I mean, he had 32 points for the Eagles against the Packers. I don't know if he'll perform that way again. It's kind of hard to decide, but they are playing the Jets, and I feel like if I was Wentz, I would step up the running game. They do have a pretty hard defense to compete against, the Jets, that is. But I believe if Howard could run through the Packers defense, who was known to be the best defense right now, obviously under the Bears, I feel like he could still perform very well. So I'm fluctuating between having him and my two receivers in the flex. But those are kind of the two people that I feel like will highlight a lot. If you've got any questions or you have any other matchups that you're concerned about, like shoot me something in the comments. I'd love to just break down different people and help you out, and it would help me out because I'm kind of in my own pickle. And let's just wrap this up with kind of who I predict is going to win this week. I think the Titans are going to beat the Bills, and it might be a high-scoring game. With Marcus, it's very hard. I know I use the word unpredictable a lot throughout this entire video because the Raiders are unpredictable. Jameis is everybody's unpredictable. It's sports. You never know what's going to happen. Except you do know, try and true, that Tom Brady is going to kick butt every time. So, and his defense is scoring so many points for me. I'm very fortunate for that. But I feel like Marcus, now that he's got his groove going, he dominated against Matt Ryan. He could really utilize his receivers and get the ball down the field, and I think that'll be a threat for the Bills. Another game that I feel like is a little iffy, but I'm going to touch on it, is the Jaguars and the Panthers. The Jaguars' defense is coming out of nowhere, and Minshew is something to be keep your eye on. He's playing so well. I don't know if he's going to make it too far, but he's playing well. The team's playing well. His receivers are doing great. It's just a lot. It's a lot of great chemistry that you can notice. And for the Panthers, they're kind of having that same vibe too since Cam Newton's out. So it's gonna be a good matchup. I feel like those are kind of the two matchups I'm most looking forward to. I mean, there's a lot too, truly. So week 5 is gonna be exciting. But I just want to thank everybody for tuning in. If you want to subscribe, please do. Also, check out the Nuts and Bolts website. We've got a ton of content on there, a lot of articles. I just wanted to say thanks again, everybody, and I'll see you next Tuesday. I'm on 10 again. State your name.